Dynasty podcast. We are doing MLB team previews once again, and this time we have a new guest, and it is the owner of the Chicago White Sox. We have Steve McGlynn with us tonight.
Thanks, John. It's a pleasure to be with you, as always.
So, obviously, you chose the Chicago White Sox after I moved off of them. Are you glad to have them this year and finally represent the South Side?
Absolutely. As a kid growing up on the south side of Chicago in the Mount Greenwood area, I represent that 60655. I appreciate everything with the White Sox and have a lot of memories of the White Sox growing up. And it was an honor to be in Toronto, but I'm glad Chicago's willing to let me own the south side team here.
So last year did not go the way you really thought it would, with you finishing in 6th place. Obviously, you made the playoffs, so that's not a bad thing. But you did lose to Kevin's Astros in a very close 7-5 matchup, and we actually pulled it up before the podcast. But it really was not a far shot for you. The scoreboard says you lost by one category, but when it came down to it, you had 2 more walks than he did. You had 7 less strikeouts, 1 less quality start, and do you regret not paying attention or not making a couple of pitching pickups in that matchup, considering how close it was?
John, first of all, making it to the playoffs is always a good start. I'm proud of my guys for the hard play that they're going on with there. Unfortunately, Kevin does field a very good program there over in Houston. They're kind of unstoppable, we felt like. I wanted to believe in my pitching staff, and maybe it was down to my coaching that was an issue, but I do like to believe in my guys and everything we stand for. And, at the end of the day, the Astros are who we thought they were, and they came out to play.
They did, and you put up a hell of a matchup. You guys had a great matchup, and unfortunately, like I said, you finished in 6th place, but you did finish with a record of 136, 102, and 14. 34 games over 500, so that's a great season. You got to leave with your head held high. But you made some big changes this offseason, and let's get into those because we'll start with the smaller ones, guys like Jason Groom, Michelle Baez for your minor leagues, and then a couple of pitchers in Jose Quintana and Brad Peacock. Obviously, Quintana not having the year you wanted him to last year with an ERA over 4. Do you think he can bounce back this year, even though he's still with the Cubs?
John, we're kind of glad to have him here in Chicago. With the Cubs, it's an interesting thing what's going on with the Cubs right now. I don't know what to expect from this year, but I'm really hoping for great things to come out of him this year.
I agree, and there were a lot of players that actually came out recently that said under Joe Madden, they felt like a lot of the work was optional, so they didn't put in their best work, and one of those guys being Javi Baez. So I wonder if that kind of extended to Jose Quintana as well. Not a bad year in terms of strikeouts, not his usual self, but he seemed very hittable. So hopefully he bounces back this year. But the biggest upgrade that you made this year was Aaron Judge. Are you excited to have him, especially since you got rid of Yasiel Puig for him?
We suffered a couple big losses this year, Puig definitely being one of them. We suffered some serious losses to our pitching staff, but we lost an MVP also this year. So Judge is going to definitely be a centerpiece of the program, possibly someone to hold inside of the trophy case, hopefully to bring us all the way to the title.
He had a weird year last year because in the first half he wasn't himself. It seemed like he was really hampered. I don't remember, at least myself, if something was holding him back, but I remember in the last month of the year or so, he ended up hitting a ton of home runs. I believe it was 15 over the last 45 games as I pull it up here. So pre-All-Star game, he had 9 home runs with a 271 average. 271 average, not bad, but 9 home runs out of Judge is terrible. But then in the remaining 69 games of the season, he had 18 jacks with 35 RBIs and a 273 average. So he returned to form. And I think he's going to be a big get for you, especially even though you lost Puig. That's a big upgrade. I like Aaron Judge a ton, especially for the offense. He's a very Bryce Harper-like guy. And since you have Harper, that's a hell of a combination between those two with 70 home runs combined.
Yeah, he was a big upgrade. It's hard to say what we expect out of him. Obviously, a lot of players do a little bit better, it seems like, after the All-Star break, and I'm glad to see he was back to himself, and I hope that he plays on his A-game the entire season this year. We really count on him here in Chicago.
Now, for players that you lost during the offseason, we mentioned Yasiel Puig. You said that was a big loss, but then you did mention a pitcher in Jacob deGrom that you lost and the MVP candidate in Mookie Betts. Which one of these probably hurts the most out of these three for you?
I'm going to go deGrom. Mookie Betts he's definitely a star player, and we'd love to see him back here. Actually, we're currently in negotiations to have him back on the team. Either way that goes, um, it goes. But pitching staff here, it seems to be that our pitching is our shortcoming, and it seems to be that mistakes on my end and the general manager's end were what cost us a further spot inside the playoffs last year. So I feel like the pitching staff is going to be what actually is our downfall this year, and hopefully we can get better in those circles.
And that's something all you have to do is stay active on the waiver wire, and I believe that you can do that. Especially, you never know who comes up, who pops up. A guy like Brendan Woodruff, and we'll actually get into some interesting players. He's one of them that you had last year that was a big part of your pitching staff with a trade between you and myself. It was Brandon Woodruff, Nathan Eovaldi, and someone else for Carlos Carrasco. And so at this point, it seems like you've won that trade, considering he had a 3.62 ERA and 143 strikeouts. He did miss a month due to injury, but he seems pretty exciting going into 2020 for a Brewers team that really doesn't have a whole lot of pitching. So is Brandon Woodruff on your high list? Are you excited to watch him this year?
We're excited to watch everybody, not one player in particular. Here in Chicago, we like to think of ourselves as a team overall instead of just one player at a time. But we're definitely excited to watch him play. But he does have to keep in the back of his head every day in practice that we still have 4 cuts to make with the season coming up close. So it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be tough 4 other cuts we have to make.
Definitely. And Brandon Woodruff, absolutely exciting. Could be a leader in that staff of yours. Another player that got moved is David Price. He moved to the LA Dodgers. I really like the move to the NL for him, especially for the Dodgers. They may not throw him 200 innings every year, but they're going to get the best out of him. Even if he throws 160 innings, I think he's going to put up even better ratios with the fact that he gets to pitch against pitchers every time through the order, and he's not going to face as dangerous of lineups, considering he went from the NL West or AL East with the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Tampa Bay Rays to the NL West, which is considerably weaker. So is he a big guy on your list that you're excited, or not excited, but that you're looking for improvement from?
Absolutely. And I'm good friends with the manager over there with the Dodgers. Mr. Roberts is actually a good player, or a good manager at this point in time, and I think he's going to lead them in a good way and make good decisions, and I think he's going to be great for us. And we're excited, absolutely excited to see him make moves in his career, better himself.
Now, onto the hitting side, one of your favorite players that I assume is Jose Abreu. Now, this is the best lineup he's ever been in. Guys like Eloy Jimenez, you've got Luis Robert obviously making his debut this year, Yoan Moncada with a big improvement. This is the most stacked lineup that he's been in this year, or in his career. So I think Jose Abreu is in for a career year. Would you agree on that?
John, I don't think it's a career year. I think it's going to be the career year. I'm so excited for him. I'd hate to pick favorites on my team, but if I had to pick a favorite, I think we all know 79 would be my favorite.
That is right. Between him and Moncada and Robert, they've all got really odd numbers, because Jose Abreu with 79, Eloy with 74, and I think Robert went 88, I believe, is his number. So it's really cool to see them playing almost football-type lineups with their jerseys.
It is pretty cool, John, and I know that I've been in contact with the Nationals management trying to get Jimenez to come over to the south side, and it's not going the way we want it to go.
And it's bound to happen. We've got plenty of time before the season starts for trade talks, and even going into the season, there's plenty of time for it as well. One guy that may be on your trade block, I don't know, but that had a down year last year was Manny Machado. Surprisingly, he had a good year, but just not the same all-star or Hall of Fame bound type player Manny Machado that we had seen. He had his 30-plus home runs, but his batting average was around 256, 260 all year, not the 290, 280 that we were used to in Baltimore. Do you think he can improve in 2020 now that he's had a chance to see the rest of the NL type pitching staffs?
I really do hope so, because with the big boy money he's making, we expect some big boy plays out of him, and it's just not going down that way. And if the paths keep going this way, we might have to part ways with him. And he's an excellent player. He's one hell of a baseball player, and we're glad to have him right now. But we're really hoping he could step up his game and actually play on the star level.
I think he'll be able to. The fact that the power stayed for the most part, really didn't drop too much, but the average changed, and that's bound to happen when you switch leagues. You're seeing pitchers that you've never seen on a consistent basis. The park obviously doesn't help a lot, but if he bumps his average up to say 275, 280, he'll have a few more home runs. His OPS will be over 840 again. So I think he's going to be a good bounce back candidate, and especially guys like Tommy Pham are now on the Padres. You've got the second year of Fernando Tatis. He's got good surrounding pieces. So Manny Machado's definitely up there as a guy that I would look to bounce back, and that's you've got to strengthen offense, and I think he's going to be a big part of it.
I'm really hoping so. I think that we give him the incentives that he needs to become the great player that we know he can be, and we're definitely giving him the money. So we just got to make sure that he stays focused and stays on the right path, and then he can get his work in, and we could possibly get a championship this year.
I think so, and a lot of that's going to be based on the strength of your team, which is stolen bases, OPS, runs, home runs, and quality starts. Obviously, like you said, you feel like the pitching staff's not where you want it to be. It's not the strength of your team, but offense is definitely a big part of your game. While you don't have the average or RBIs that a lot of teams might say is a strength, but I like the fact that you've got some speed, you've got the ability to to get on base and slug at the same time with OPS, and you've got a lot of guys that are going to score a lot of runs and produce a lot of power out of your offense. Guys like Judge and who else is on your team if I can pull it up here. Obviously, Josh Donaldson is a 30 home run guy. Anthony Rendon is projected for just under 30. Jose Abreu is another 30 home run hitter. Power is your game, and it's going to pay off, and it's going to produce a lot of runs for you. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. It's something we're looking forward to. Is we want to give the fans, a good show here. We're trying to put fannies in the seats here and making sure we can put off a show. And it seems like they like home runs, and that's where they're buying the tickets from. So that's the way we're going. Is we're going for power, and obviously we want to get on base too. But power is always nice to have on the team.
And you've got a little bit of speed, especially, or not even a little, but you've got a decent amount of it with Ahmed Rosario and Jonathan VR and Starling Marte all projected with over 20 stolen bases. So I think you're going to constantly win that one in most matchups. I wouldn't worry too much about that. And then surprisingly, quality starts was one that I didn't expect for you to have as a strength, but guys like Madison Bumgarner, Cole Hamels, Kyle Hendricks, they're not flashy, but they're consistent. They'll go out there, they'll get you 6-7 innings, 3 runs or less, and they're going to be workhorses for you, even if they're not the sexy type names that they used to be.
John, that's really the name of the game, is being consistent and making sure you produce for your team. At the end of the day, being consistent and making sure that you know what you're doing and doing what you're doing to the best of your absolute ability, that's what wins the game at the end of the day in my eyes.
I agree. Now, I feel like you're pretty league average in a lot of categories, which is a good thing. You've got a good floor for it. But if you want to supplement it, it won't take as much to improve those categories into a strength. And those league average categories to me we'll start on the pitching side with strikeouts and saves and holds. You've got a very top-heavy bullpen with, as I can pull it up here, with Brad Hand, you've got Aroldis Chapman, Nick Anderson, all projected with over 30 saves or holds. And then you got guys that'll chip in with Trey Wingert, Nathan Eovaldi. We don't know what his role will be. But I feel like that's a very good category for you. If you want to supplement more in there, that won't be too hard. And strikeouts, you don't have anyone that's over 200 strikeouts, but everyone is producing, and it seems like the pitching staff is a team game for you. Would that be correct?
Absolutely. It's a team game for sure. We're just making sure at this point in time everybody's pulling their weight right now. I think we got a couple good players, a couple players that stand out more than other ones, actually. But as of right now, I'm just glad that everybody's pulling their weight, and if we can keep doing that, pulling our weight to the entire season, I think that pitching staff will be okay and hold in for the rest of the season.
Exactly. It's a marathon, not a sprint. 162 games. It's going to take a long time to determine who's the best team in the league. And then back to your offense, you've got average and RBI you'll be competitive in every week. You may not win them consistently, but they'll be something that you don't have to worry about. Obviously, you've got some guys that can hit 280, 250, 280, 270 every week. Obviously, it'll fluctuate depending on who's in a cold streak, who's hot, but that's not something ever that I think you'll have to worry about. And same with RBIs. You've got some guys that are very top heavy. Javi Baez is projected for 100. Same with Jose Abreu. And Bryce Harper is once again projected over 100. So you've got your big boppers that can drive in the runs. The back end of your team is where you might struggle, but that's where the runs come in as well. Guys like Jonathan VR can produce runs for you.
Absolutely. Obviously, you got to get on base to score a couple runs, and just getting on base is the first part about it.
Now, when it comes to your weaknesses, we kind of discussed your pitching staff, but it looks like ERA, WHIP, and walks allowed are going to be one that you might struggle with from time to time, just because you've got guys that do have a little bit of control issues or that they tend to be very hittable. Obviously, they allow base runners and things like that, but is there anyone you have in mind that you're looking to bounce back, or any pickups that you're looking to make, or even trades that you might want to supplement this pitching staff with?
At the current moment right now, John, it's hard to say. I'm kind of content almost of where we're at. I don't really want to make any changes because I feel like we have just enough pieces to complete the puzzle right now, and I don't want to start taking things out that necessarily don't need to be taken out or adding pieces that just don't fit. So I'm trying to stay consistent right now, and it seems that everybody's pulling their weight. Unfortunately, we got some areas to work in, but I think any team's got their own areas they got to work on.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's got a hole, and you know where yours are at. And especially ERA, that's something that we've seen guys have career years and put up at 3.0, 2.8, and come out of nowhere. So it seems like a weakness right now, just looking at projections and kind of based off of what they did last year. But I mean, especially if Eovaldi is healthy, he may be a guy that can produce a 3.5 for you and really bring down the overall team ERA and make that a league average category for you. So going into 2020, if you had to predict where you're going to finish, where are you planning to be, and where would you hope to be?
Hey, John, well, I think everybody is hoping to win the World Series at the end of the year. I think that my guys want to play long into, hopefully not into Game 7, just into Game 4 with the sweep in the World Series. But realistically, I'd be content with another playoff berth. I think the guys worked real hard in everything they've done, and I just want to make sure that we can produce enough to at least, make it to the postseason and make sure we're putting in the proper amount of work.
So I've got you as a playoff berth as well. Do you think you can move past that first round and get over that little hump that you have and get your first postseason win?
Possibly. There's a lot of good programs out here. There are a lot of good programs out here, John, and a lot of these cats are putting in a lot of work, and a lot of other managers and owners are putting in a lot of work and really working their guys, and it's going to be a lot of competition this year, and we're glad to be part of it.
I agree. Right now I've got you as a playoff berth or playoff bound, but I see you as a first round exit, unfortunately, due to the weakness at pitching staff. But because of the strength of your offense, you could go past the first round pretty easily if you get some luck and if you get some guys that have some easier matchups. Say they play the Orioles, say they play the Royals or the Tigers that week. You could have guys that throw a 8-inning shutout or go 7 innings and give up 1 or 2 hits and really win ERA or WHIP category for you. So I think you've got a good chance. I've got you as a playoff berth once again, just because your offense is so good and you've got at least a good floor in your pitching staff. It won't ever kill you like some other programs in our league. So let's get into the PECOTA win total at the end here. And by no surprise, you've got the 4th ranked offense according to PECOTA with 37.4 wins above replacement and 22.2 wins above replacement for your pitching staff, which ranks 6th. It kind of shows, obviously, that you don't have a high ceiling pitching staff, but you've got the good floor. Like you said, everyone can pull their weight. Everyone's going to be competitive. But that offense of yours is pretty destructive. Guys like Aaron Judge and Javier Baez and Jose Abreu are just guys that will go out there and win you weeks and possibly win you a league. It's pretty exciting, and I think you've got a great team, and even PECOTA agrees with you there.
Yeah, we're trying to make a solid base for the team, and a lot of the guys on the team are on the team for certain reasons, and I'm glad that our offense is shaping up the way we want it to be. It was one of our main focuses in the last year or so, and it's starting to come together. Obviously, we need to pay a little bit more attention to what we're doing on the pitching side, but I think that the team's starting to come together, and we got a full year to make sure that we put a pitching staff together, and hopefully it gets together just in time for us to win the big games.
Is there anything else you want to say about this team before we get out of here for the night?
Go ahead and start buying your tickets now and all the gear for the World Series. We're going to start selling hats and shirts and whatever else you like. We really hope we're making it. We think we feel a good team, and I'm really proud of all my guys.
I gotta say, it's a first on this podcast. Somebody saying that start printing your postseason tickets and getting your gear early. I like the boldness, though. It's definitely a bold move before the season starts, and like I said, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and it's going to be interesting to see who stays healthy, who doesn't, who really breaks out for your team, and who ends up just not performing the way you wanted. But I'm excited to see what happens with your team, especially since you were the first playoff team that we got to interview.
Absolutely, John. And you know what? Wise man once told me, if you shoot for the moon, at least you'll end up at the stars of the treetops. So let's shoot for the World Series, and let's hopefully at least make it playoffs. Like any other owner here, I want to make sure that every single one of my guys is wearing a ring, and I do want to pay out the bonuses at the end of the year. So hopefully we can get this together and get ourselves a ship.
Well, I'm glad you were able to join me for this team preview, and I'm glad we were able to have you on. So I just want to say thank you and have a wonderful night.
Anytime, John. Thank you.